Okay, Chair, you're now live.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Newham Pensions Board. This is the first time the board is meeting since the restrictions due to COVID-19 have been put in place. And it's also the first time we're meeting on Zoom, and this is being live streamed on YouTube. So firstly, can I request everyone that if you can hear me, can you just raise your hands, please? Okay, great. Thank you. And may I also request all the board members and the officers present to mute themselves and only speak if when they're invited to do so. And I will invite you to unmute yourself when you raise your hand. So my name is Tejonidhi Kashyap, and I'm the independent chair of the Newham Pensions Board. I will now ask each member and officer to introduce themselves by raising their hand and unmuting themselves and introducing themselves. Thank you. So first we'll go with Veronica. Veronica, can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself? Thank you.
My name's Veronica Harley, and I'm the employee rep for Unison.
Thank you, Veronica. If you can mute yourself now. Catherine.
My name's Catherine Hanlon. I'm the employee rep for the GMB.
Thanks, Catherine. Donford.
Hi, I'm Donford Varden. I'm the branch secretary for Unite the Union in Newham.
Thanks, Donford. John Hollins.
Okay, good afternoon. My name's John Hollins. I'm an employer representative. I'm a current pensioner from Newham, and I've previously had strategic responsibility for the pensions function, amongst other things.
Thank you, John. And finally, John Saunders. I think if he can be unmuted, please.
Try again.
Hi, John.
Can you hear me? I'm John Saunders. I'm also an employer rep.
Thank you. And can I request the officers to introduce themselves? Rakesh?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rakesh Rajan. I manage the Newham Pension Fund.
Thank you. Ian?
I'm Ian Weavers. I'm the Pensions Contract Manager.
Thanks, Ian. And James?
Good afternoon. I'm James Cox. I'm the Interim Head of People Transactional Services.
Thank you. We also have a clerk off screen taking notes and another staff member overseeing the technical side of the proceedings. If anyone has a question or needs to catch my attention, as I said, please raise your hand. So I will not be monitoring the chat box. So that's a way to get my attention. Let's move on to the next item. Apologies for absence. I know, I think John Saunders may get disconnected because of where he's connecting from. And also Donford, I think you're going to leave a bit early. So we'll note that. Are there any other apologies received?
No, Chair, there have been no other apologies received.
Thank you. The next item, declarations of interest. Are there any members wishing to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or other interests they may have in any matter which are going to be discussed today? No? Okay, thank you. Next item, action log. So I think before that we have the minutes. So are the minutes of the last meeting of the Pensions Board held early this year? I think it was held on 20th January. Are they agreed as a correct record of the meeting? Please raise your hand to show me your approval. Okay, thank you. So action logs. Are there any updates or comments on the action log? Officers, anything? No update?
No, the outstanding issues from the administration side are all still in progress.
Okay. I'd like to note an item which was about the annual report. So I know there's a line item later today, but the update I want to give now is that the business, the annual report will be drafted, and I'd like to include that in the next meeting for discussion. And Rakesh, is there any progress around the LIBOR cessation discussion? Has that been flagged to the investment managers?
Yes, it has. We had a meeting with the investment advisor back in March, just before. So everything's been considered and is being taken care of with the fund managers.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to hear an update later. Maybe not this meeting.
Sure.
Thank you. So we move on to item 5, which is the pensions administration report. Ian, can I request you to present the report, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Right, the first item is the actual pensions administration service. I don't intend to read through this report word for word. Obviously, at the end of the report, you can ask questions on each section that you may have. The Pensions Administration Service, as you're aware, is currently with the Local Pensions Partnership. From the previous meeting that we had, it was reported that they were going to increase the cost of the administration service. The situation we're basically in at the moment is that we're putting together a benchmarking report. That benchmarking report will basically be presented, and depending on the recommendation that's followed, the governance will be put into place to the ongoing administration. It really depends on whether we continue with the Local Pensions Partnership or choose another route to what needs to be put into place regarding the legal issues and the governance behind it. So the situation we're in, as I said, just to quickly recap, is that it's still ongoing. The benchmarking report will be presented, and that will be made available to the board as well. So they're fully aware of the options available, and obviously the recommendation based on those options. The next item is the pension software contract. In February, we've actually awarded another 5-year contract to Haywards, or Aquilia Hayward. This basically allows Newham to utilise the pensions administration software system in any scenario. Excuse me. So if, for example, the administration doesn't continue with the LPP, it gives us the option that we've got an actual contract with Hayward, which we can implement whatever the scenario. So if it's brought back in-house, for example, then we would still have this Hayward's contract because we have a direct contract with them. But this was agreed in February for a period of 5 years. The next item is a sort of basic administration COVID-19 update, really. The pensions regulator has recommended that we prioritise paying monthly pensions, processed retirement benefits, and bereavement cases. It could be argued anyway that these are all priorities, but these are obviously being prioritised at this time. All staff have been relocated to home working over the last few months, and I can report that the Local Pensions Partnership have continued to meet their targets that have been set out in the service level agreement. active members of the pension scheme during this period has also remained stable. It's unknown whether deaths are related to the coronavirus, but there has been an increased number of deaths of retired members, and the early indications do show that's between the ages of 81 and 90. We are also in the process of contacting admitted employers in the fund to ascertain whether any of their staff have been furloughed. We have the initial results back, but we're still receiving responses from employers regarding their employees. Sorry, just apologies, it just said I was muted, but hopefully you can still hear me. The current situation regarding COVID has not impacted the end of year submissions, and the annual benefit statements, which have to be dispatched by the end of August, were actually issued by the 31st of August deadline. The actual cleanliness of the data as well has been significantly improved from last year, and as I said, the annual benefit statements were issued in line with the regulations. Just to add as well, that we are looking to contact admitted bodies regarding the suspension or reduction of pension contributions to the fund because of the current situation. But to date, we haven't received any notifications from our employers in the fund that they wish to take some kind of holiday in paying over the contributions. All contributions from our admitted scheduled bodies, trusts and academies have been received as at August, and we work a month in arrears, so the August contributions are paid over in September. So we're basically up to date with all the contributions, and as I said, nobody has actually asked for some kind of payment holiday because of the current situation. The next item is just to advise the board of the abatement of pensions policy. Newham Council operates abatement of pensions, which basically means that if you're re-employed within a local authority and your new employment salary plus your pension you're receiving exceeds your previous salary, then your pension could be reduced or suspended. Because of the COVID situation, we passed a new policy not to apply this for any key worker that has volunteered to come back in the authority who's already in receipt of a pension. So, as you're probably aware, over the sort of past few months, a number of people have volunteered to come back and help, and therefore the abatement policy is not going to be applied to any of these individuals. In addition, we had a few members of the scheme that basically had to come back into the Newham Fund. They were in receipt of a pension and transferred out to a private organisation, and through no fault of their own were then transferred back to Newham. And it was also agreed not to abate these people's pensions because it wasn't their choice, and therefore this was actually agreed by the pensions committee at the last pension committee meeting, and there is a copy of the actual discretions in this agenda, just so you can note that we made that amendment for these particular employees. Excuse me. The annual benefit statements, the pensions actual pensions committee asked to review the statement. Again, this is included, it's Appendix 2. So the board are also asked to have a look at this, just moving forward to see if you actually want any amendments to the annual benefit statement which is sent out. It's a generic statement which the local pensions partnership use for all the organisations and authorities that they deal with. Obviously our one is Newhamised, if you like, but the pensions committee did request that they actually had a look at it, and if you want to make any suggestions regarding it, then they can be taken forward to the pensions committee and then to the local pensions partnership. Obviously, as I already reported with regards to the contract, it may not stay with it. It's not my decision whether it stays with the local pensions partnership, but on the basis that it does, then this statement will be issued again next year to deferred members and employees. So if you wish to have a look at that and report back, it'd be appreciated. The next item is the age discrimination. Basically regarding this, this is going to cause a big administration exercise for all authorities. The Court of Appeal basically ruled that the transitional arrangements were discriminatory even, and that certain members of the scheme should now have their benefits reviewed. We're hoping moving forward that our software provider, Haywards, as previously mentioned, will put in the necessary software to enable us to identify all these people and carry out any revisions that are needed. But without knowing the numbers and the figures involved, I obviously can't comment on what impact it may have to the actual fund. The next item is the ill health risk insurance. Excuse me. Basically, at the moment, when somebody is ill health retired, excuse me, or when there is a death in service, the actual fund is paying for the cost of this. What we're looking to do is put in some kind of risk insurance, excuse me, to actually cover the admitted bodies. It only takes 1 or 2 ill health retirements for a small employer, and it can cost literally hundreds of thousands of pounds. And at the moment, the fund, if you like, is picking that up, the cost of that up. And so what we're trying to have a look at is for each admitted scheduled body to pay a percentage of their payroll to cover this actual scenario. So the actual liability, if you like, falls on the employer as opposed to the fund as a whole. And therefore, at the moment, there are a few options that have been outlined in this report. And the actual situation at the moment will be a report analysing all of these options to be formally approved and move forward. The actuaries will put this in place and monitor this. But as I said, at the moment, this is a work in progress. As I'm sure you're aware, the benefits that are on offer for death in service, for instance, is 3 times your annual salary. So you're only looking at somebody earning, it's a good salary of £30,000, and the actual cost is £90,000 to the fund at the moment. And as I said, at the moment, the main fund is picking up all the costs of this as opposed to the individual employers. So that's the reasoning behind it. The risk matrix report, this is basically being reviewed at the moment. It contains details of our participating employers that are in the fund and highlights any risks to the fund. It's at the moment, as I said, being reviewed and should be presented at the next meeting for the local pension board to obviously view. just with regard to communications as well, we're also looking for a communications exercise to contact people that actually aren't in the pension scheme at the moment. And again, this is a work in progress, and I expect details to be provided at future meetings with regard to what's actually been decided for the communication strategy. And lastly, the exit cap. This is basically outlined in Appendix 3. So I don't know if you've got that available. It was initially intended.
Ian, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it keeps going on to muted, but anyway, sorry. As I was saying, the exit cap was, at the time of writing this, going to be brought in by the end of this year. It now looks like that this will be coming in next month, which has a cap of £95,000 applied to any exit benefits. So it will affect pensions, although the lead on this should be by, and is by, Human Resources, because it doesn't just include pension payments, it will include redundancy payments and other payments that are basically involved in the termination process. So we will provide more information regarding this in due course, but it is likely that this will be applied from next month, and it could mean that somebody made redundant, for example, will be able to buy out, if you like, any excess. Somebody made redundant may also be offered the opportunity to take deferred benefits as opposed to the immediate benefits, which cause the pension strain cost. So, as I said, this is also moving forward every day, and you'll get a full update regarding this in due course. And that's the basic end of the administration update.
Thanks, Ian. That was useful. I have a couple of questions before I invite others to talk. The LCC, LCC arrangement. I see elsewhere from another report that they've undergone an audit, periodic audits from last year, and I think whilst there's been an improvement in their service provision, I think there's still some outstanding issues. Have those been considered when discussing negotiating with the LCC in terms of their performance?
Well, their performance, they're meeting the service level agreement. It's more of a case of moving forward. So yeah, I would say yes, they have everything is being discussed with regard to their performance and what they're offering, and also the costs that are actually involved. As I said, all we can do is to put together a benchmarking report outlining what they're actually offering and the alternatives, and then a decision will be made moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And regarding the COVID update, you said that active membership has been stable. So I noted in the annual report that the intake, rather the uptake of the pension fund amongst the 25 to 40 age group is quite less. So has there been any change? Because I think this population has been probably the most affected during the COVID crisis in terms of employment. Either they've been furloughed or they've lost their jobs. So is there any data points the pension fund's looking at to address that? Ian, you're on mute, sorry.
This will all be part of the communications plan moving forward, to actually identify the staff and their age groups that aren't in the scheme, and also the posts that they hold, to try and ascertain if there is a certain age group, and also a certain salary group as well, if you like, that are not actually members of the scheme, and try to basically let them know the benefits of being in the scheme. Scheme membership is running around about 82% at the moment, which is fairly high, but obviously there's always room for improvement. Until it becomes compulsory, you'll never get 100% membership of the scheme, but part of the communications exercise will be to try and look at that, the actual sort of demographics of the employees, of why they're not in the scheme, and what we can do to try and get them to be in the scheme.
Okay, thank you. And I had a question about the annual benefit statement. So are there any key changes from the previous version which have been flagged, or which need to be flagged to the board?
No, there hasn't been any changes to the annual benefit statement. So, what you have there is a basic generic statement, which the pensions committee wanted to review and basically discuss to see if they could make changes or sort of moving forward.
And is this statement sent online, or is it sent by physical mail?
It's sent by physical mail.
Okay, so can I just recommend that you include a QR code for the links? I see a lot of links in the letter, so I don't think anyone will actually go to a website and type the URL. So I think it'll be useful if there's a QR code with a link, and so if someone uses their smartphone and goes on that, they can go to the website directly.
Okay, that's noted.
Thank you. And I have a last question before I invite the floor to discuss the ill health risk insurance. So I think this will be interesting for our employee reps as well. So have these been discussed with the small and medium employers? And do they understand the risks around the opting in and opt out of the scheme?
It hasn't been discussed with the actual individual employers yet, because the preferred route hasn't been finalised. Once there is a preferred option that's been agreed, then it will be discussed with the actual individual employers.
Thank you. And I'd suggest that this be added to the risk matrix. I think that's a potential risk, not only to the fund, but also to the participating employer.
Okay, noted.
With that, I'd invite any of the other members, forward. I'll invite them forward. Yes, John. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, my question is about the ill health risk insurance opt-out as well. If an employer opts out of the scheme, is the 1% premium on their payroll they would have had to have paid spread amongst the remaining employers, or does the strain on the fund be picked up by the whole fund?
Well, my understanding would be that if they opt out of this process, then they're going to be liable for the cost of the retirements, if you see what I mean.
Yes, I
don't know. Somebody may wish to basically come in on that particular point.
Yeah, could I just add something further? Sorry, James. Do we think if the employers were to be liable for picking up those strain costs of the ill health retirements, do we think there's any possibility that will put contracts at risk? Sorry, that's the
jump in now. Cool. Yeah.
Go on, James.
Just to give a little bit more detail just on the self-insurance. So currently, all the employers built into their employer rate, it takes into account ill health, and that within sort of the rate is part of all the kind of the factors that the actuary uses to ascertain a rate. So when someone does become ill health and the strain costs have materialised, the fund takes the hit. So what will happen after that is that because that employer had that ill health going through, when it comes to the next triennial review, their rate will be considered given that they've had an ill health take place in that period. So what the move potentially is looking like, so there's various options. You could potentially go to an external route, but there's one of the options we're kind of looking at is within the existing rate, all the employers have an earmarked 1% taken out of their existing employer rate, and that's moved into a central pot. So no one's paying any additional employer contributions at the initial stage. It just means that you're almost sharing the risk between all employers rather than one small employer has an ill health and suddenly that then will up their employer rate at the next triennial review. Because it would be spread across the load, it's going to protect the smaller, it will hopefully may protect the smaller employers if we go down that route, I should stress as well. But in regards to will it increase contract prices, if they did opt out of the scheme, then if they did have a number of ill health retirements taking place sort of over a period of time, when it comes to their next triennial review, then their employer rates will increase, and invariably that's going to put a pressure on the existing contract price they agreed, and then so that you would have to enter into negotiations at that stage.
Thanks, James. I think that's John saying thank you as well. I could read his lips. Okay. Any other comments from the board members? No. So can I request that this update be noted? Can I request everyone to raise their hands? Okay, just let me check if there's any person I missed there. Yeah. Thank you. So moving on, can we go to the next item, that is the local pensions partnership administration member communication update. So who's giving this update? Is that you, Ian?
Yes, I'll sort of briefly mention the next three topics actually.
Thank you.
What I've provided here, the local pensions partnership have provided is their member communication update for the coming year. It details their communication plans and what they are basically looking to do. And it's really for the board to know, and if they have any comments regarding it, I would suggest they're brought back. I don't know if the board have actually looked through this already at detail, but to basically make any comments that I can take back to the local pensions partnership. As I said, in line with this, we will be doing our communications update as well in due course with regard to scheme members and also non-scheme members.
Thanks, Ian. Can I just ask if there's been any uptake in the online what can I call it, the website or the online the medium to which people can engage with this? Has there been an uptake of usage in the last 6 or 9 months?
Newham at the moment doesn't have the online option. We don't have member self-service at the moment. So that's something which could be implemented moving forward.
Okay, sorry, I was under the impression the MPO is online access.
It is, yes. Again,
we don't have that. Okay.
No, we don't actually have that, but their communication update will be for all the organisations that they deal with, not just Newham. So they include it for those that have.
Okay, I think it'll be useful because I see on page 55 that there's been a marginal uptake generally. It's not significant, but it's still 5%, about 5% increase. So I think it'll be really useful. Yeah, so I agree with Ian, and if I'd request the other board members to just go through this slide deck and get back with questions if they have any. Thank you. Next item, the LPPA annual assurance report. Ian.
Again, this is a basic report that they have provided just to reassure Newham that they are meeting the regulations and complying with the requirements. And again, it's really for the board to have a look at and note, and again, bring back any questions that they may have.
I just noticed that it's not part of the pack, so I don't know if the board members have seen it.
I would agree with that, because at the moment I'm looking for the assurance report and it's not part of my pack either, but it certainly should have been. So apologies for that. I can distribute that separately.
Yeah, I think Ian, probably you sent a separate copy to me because I made some notes on that. If the other board members don't mind, I'll just give you my initial comments. So I see that in June last year, there was Deloitte carried out an audit of their processes and found it ineffective. And in early this year, Jan 20, they followed up and some processes probably have improved. And I think this was what I alluded to earlier when we spoke about the LCC. So I see that the key issues still are rated ineffective. I think there are important points for us in our business plan. We've noted cybersecurity and the maintenance of membership data. So some things in key things like compliance with GDPR, they've been rated ineffective to effective. So I don't know if any of these directly affect our scheme. Do you know if they do, Ian?
I don't know, to be quite honest, whether they directly affect our scheme or not.
But I think it'd be useful to just get that insight to see if there's been any direct impact on our scheme based on their review. Because I think certain key points like cybersecurity and financial controls, if they're marked ineffective, then I think we need to follow up with them. And if it, well, generally, if it affects the service, and if specifically if they affect us, then we need to follow up with them. Okay, thank you. Now, since we don't have that report, can you please circulate that? Thank you.
Yes, Chair, I'll have that circulated after the meeting. It should have been attached, and I can only apologise that it wasn't.
That's fine. Thank you. The next item is improving address tracing and mortality screening.
Yes, again, this is another LPP report. It's basically very important to have address accuracy and obviously membership accuracy. We're moving forward at the moment, sorry, we use the National Fraud Initiative, the NFI, which is a 2-yearly exercise. We obtain reports for members, retired members of the scheme that have passed away, and then obviously check that with the information that we hold to see if there's any discrepancies, and therefore identify anybody that's still having a pension paid, but has actually passed away. We also use the Tell Us One service, whereby anybody can just make one call, and this service will then contact the various organisations where that person may have had a pension or had a pension payable, as opposed to the person phoning several different organisations. So it's just really to say that the LPP are looking to utilise target professional to help them. We do also issue a life certificate exercise on a as and when basis. It's not mandatory to send out these to people, but it is open, to be honest, to fraud in certain cases, although we do request that an individual has the form signed by somebody who's not a member of their family. But this can obviously cause problems, especially with retired members, actually finding somebody who's not an immediate member of their family to sign to say that they're the person that should be in receipt of the pension. So, as I said, it's really to outline what the LPP are doing to ensure that we have up-to-date addresses and we have up-to-date records with regard to people that we're actually paying. In my experience, with regard to pension fraud, and I'm not saying it's an issue at Newham, the biggest issue would be a retired member's pension still being paid when that person has passed away. That is the biggest issue in my opinion. So therefore it's very important that we take steps to ensure that the people we're paying are the correct people, that they're still actually alive, and also have addresses for everybody, current addresses for everybody that are completely up to date. Are there any questions regarding that?
Any questions for Ian? Please raise your hands. No, thank you. So can I take that this update is noted? Please raise your hands. Thank you. Moving on. Item 9, that's a local pension partnership risk and compliance report.
Yeah, this is a report that's again provided by the LPP on the administration. It just outlines the monthly risks, security issues, complaints, etc. And again, I'm not sure whether the board have had time to actually have a look through this, but this can be produced on a regular basis if you wish it to be. It just confirms that there's no breaches that occurred in August. There's no incidents to report, and there's no risks basically to report for the last month. We've had 2 complaints. One because a member had to take his pension because they were over 55 and were made redundant, and therefore the pension is immediately payable. So there's not a lot we could do about that, to be quite honest. And the second one was one member was unhappy with regard to the length of time it took to provide a cash equivalent transfer value. But if the board would like this produced on a regular basis, then obviously moving forward that can be done because it is a report that they provide on a monthly basis.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's a good report to have. It addresses points raised in our business plan, so I think it neatly sits in there. I think. Well, let me just see if anyone else has a view. I have a question about it, but let's see if anyone has a view. Donford and I think John. Donford,
I agree with your view. I agree with your view.
Thank you. And John Saunders, do you have anything to say? Can someone help him unmute, please?
Thank you. I agree with your suggestion.
Thanks, John. Ian, I have a question on 2 points really. So the risks and issues, there's a risk flagged about potential pension transfer mis-selling. So I think it's be good to include that so the members and the employees know these risks in some way or the other. And can I get an idea of what you actually mean by breaches? Are these regulatory breaches? Are these potential legal issues, or what are they?
Yes, they would be. Yeah, they would be breaches that have occurred. They could be data protection,
right?
Issues, but yes, breaches, legal breaches.
Okay, so I think in the next report, if you can actually include if you can ask for them to include a description like you have for the complaints, I think that'll give a good flavor, because now we met after nearly 8 months. So going forward, we don't really need a meeting to see this. If the board can see this, we can form a view quickly.
Can I just ask, Chair, do you actually want this distributed to the board separate of the next meeting?
I think it'll be useful. Yeah, I think it'll be useful.
Or include.
Are they prepared only for the board specifically, or do you run these?
No, they're not.
So I think getting them on a monthly basis will be useful.
Okay. I'll arrange that.
Thank you. I think can the board members raise their hand, please, if they agree with the suggestion? Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ian. So if there are no further questions, we go to item 10. So this was a business plan verbal discussion. I was not sure who would take it, but let me make a start. So since January, we've had some email communication between board members about what the business plan would look like. I think we're very close to the final version. I think till about March, before the lockdown, we communicated and we have a fair idea what that looks like. And I'm happy to see that the officers and the scheme, they're supporting the requirements of the plan and are providing data. So a big thank you for Ian and others who have been very prompt in sending the information over so we can form a view of what's happening in the scheme. So I see that we've received reports about the SLA performance and other operational aspects. I see that the board was asked to give or at least note, the agreed IDRP employees guide or the business continuity plan. I think even the GDPR agreement with service providers. So I think we're probably getting there. And what I recommend is in the next meeting or going forward from now to the next meeting, we finalize, as the board members, we finalize the actual text of the business plan and make a plan to get it on the website. So it's available for everyone to see. Can board members raise their hands in agreement, please? Thank you. Ian, is there anything else you would like to add to what I said?
Just that the Pensions Committee have requested that you as a board, include a review of membership and reconciliation processes?
It's part of the business plan. It's part of the it's as part of a subheading about membership. So I think there's a section on record keeping. So we've already included that. So is there anything from your perspective we have to see from a data perspective point of view where we can make that assessment?
Well, we can provide the various data to you. If the board can basically advise what they would like moving forward, we can obviously provide that.
So specifically, I think membership data, we've spoken about this. What can the board use from a reconciliation process point of view? So what do you actually mean by that?
Well, it's basically the review of the membership is obviously we can provide data of members. Excuse me. We can break that down into employers and provide you details of members that are in the scheme in those employers. But I can get the LPP to actually provide details of their reconciliation processes to ensure that what they have in place is operating efficiently with regard to members joining the scheme, leaving the scheme. So in effect, the membership data reflects an accurate description of the status of the people that are in the fund, whether they're active members, deferred members, retired members, etc. So I can request that the LPP provide some information on what they actually do to ensure that the data is as accurate as it can be.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I second that. So can board members raise their hands in agreement? Okay, thank you. So yes, Ian, that'll be useful. So I suggest that you can err on the side of caution in terms of this. So if there's more information, that's fine. I think we'll take time in processing it and understand the themes behind it. So maybe next year we can see if there's certain aspects of it we don't need to see. But I think going forward from now, it'll be useful to see all of it. Is there anything anyone wants to raise about the business plan? I know we can offline discuss the specific wording, but any broad theme which think has been missed. I know I've got feedback about the risks related to the investment. So if you see the overall risk register, which is in the last part of the pack, you'll see there's the pensions committee has identified that the pension board needs to scrutinize even in investment process. I don't think at the moment we have enough information in our training in order to do that. So I think that's something if the board feels that we should look at more closely, then we should include that in our business plan. Any other thoughts, board members? Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll finalize the text on the business plan and aim to get it published in or around the next meeting. Thank you. Going to the next item, number 11, training. Ian, Rakesh, do you want to give an update on the lack of training for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, the intentions were that you would have been provided with training over the past few months. Because of the COVID-19, obviously that hasn't been possible. And so I think moving forward, I think what we all probably hoped is that after a short period of time of working away from the office, that by now we may all be back in an office at some point. Whereas the reality is, it looks like this is going to continue for 6 months or more. And under those circumstances, I think what needs to happen is that training should be offered over this kind of platform that we're on at the moment. Not necessarily on YouTube, but obviously on Zoom. Can I just ask Rakesh? Sorry, Rakesh.
Yeah.
Has any pensions committee training been taking place?
Yeah, I mean, we've been using the Zoom platform for updates. We had a COVID update, and there's been some trainings, and we have our QSR meetings. Outside of that, there are some trainings that are going to be available for trustees, which I may have forwarded you from Sept. And there are some trainings events that are coming, online training events that are going to be available from September onwards.
And can I ask also, are Barnet Waddingham doing training for pension committee members?
Yes, they will be. I think there's a timetable that they've circulated. There should be some dates coming up on there as well for board members as well, pension board. I think you're on mute.
So presumably, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So presumably, pension board training can be incorporated with pension committee training?
Yes.
Moving forward?
Well, I mean, obviously there will be some specifics regarding administration. So that would obviously be tailored more towards the local pension board. Yeah, but if there's other training that's generic, then certainly we can include that for board members.
Right, thank you.
I think anything related with investments, risk management, and any training around asset classes and the usage of them, I think will be really, really useful. I think not just the administration side, but I think the fund management side also. I think that way, maybe going forward, the board can be more effective in checking and challenging what the pensions committee does. I think it's very useful. Catherine.
Just a quick question. So on the pension website, is there FAQs on there for generic questions that people just want answered?
Yes.
Okay.
Catherine, do you mean from an employee perspective? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, there are.
All right. Thank you, Ian.
Can I just also say, I don't know whether the board would find it beneficial to actually have, with all due respect, some basic pensions administration training.
Please.
Yes.
As opposed to the more sort of in-depth, but actually going through what the scheme offers, how we calculate a pension, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I call it basic, but should we say pensions administration training on exactly what the board offers, how we calculate things, what people are entitled to, what they're not entitled to, the ages, etc., etc.
I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, definitely, I mean, 100%.
It's something we offer or did offer employees before the pandemic, whereby I would, from a Newham perspective, go and meet people and go through all these kind of things with how the pensions, what they can do, what they can't do, etc., and take questions. So, if you think it would be beneficial, that can be put into place.
That'd be brilliant. Thank you, Ian.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next item, risk register. So is that with Rakesh or Ian? Who's that with? I think Rakesh, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Rakesh, are you happy to?
Was it? Yeah, I'm just picking up on my the paper over here. So this risk register is incorporated within our annual report that we produce on a. In it, you'll see various areas which detail what the risks are, who the risks are assigned to in terms of risk owner, what controls are in place, and how much of that is actually competent in terms of complete, in terms of risk, and when it will be reviewed next, generally speaking. So you will probably see within that risk register, there's a number of areas that are covered in terms of financial health, governance, membership. If you look at the risk point 3, which says about ensuring the fund is in good financial health, it talks about declining active membership, leading to negative cash flow. So these are certain concerns, obviously, that we have. Obviously, if the membership has declined slightly, that has an impact in terms of the contributions coming through and the cash flow issue. Obviously, we're reliant on having investments which are income generating to meet those liabilities. So that those are areas, obviously, where those risks are highlighted. Also, if you go through, you'll see there are a number of other areas that we look at in terms of effective methods of paying people, organizations. And also we have here to ensure that the fund has a robust approach to managing risk. Internal controls are very important. Those are areas, again, that highlight there where the fund relies on third parties for providers of investment management or the administration or the custodial services. Those obviously need to be managed, and if they're not managed correctly, then they can have an impact on the performance of the fund. And again, there are changes to regulations, the new changes that are coming through. Obviously, they can have an impact. It's ensuring that there are appropriate controls and measures in place when those regulations change. Also ensuring that we comply to whatever existing regulation is there. If there's specialist knowledge needed, ensuring that we bring in those resources so that we can cover those areas. And that primarily is what we look at on that side. Other areas of key concern, I suppose, with them is being the fund to ensure there's effective methods in terms of monitoring of investment managers, the strategic asset allocations, ensuring that the valuations are up to date and are reconciled, that the statutory returns are done on time. Also, areas of key concern will be communication with the employers, stakeholders, very key area, ensuring that the fund's communication strategy is communicated to the members, ensuring that there's an annual report for the pension fund, summary version is available, ensuring that there's union representation on the committee and as also on the pension board. All these different aspects tie into the risk matrix, and that is regularly reviewed by officers and obviously shared with the committee. A part of that is also done within our business plan update, which we have on a quarterly basis. So we obviously devise a business plan for the year, and then we manage that business plan on a quarterly basis, and then we have those asset strategy panels also on a quarterly basis to ensure that we're able to meet those controls and ensure that we're managing the fund effectively. I think that would be the main aspects. Any questions?
Thanks, Rakesh. Are there any questions? I have a few. So on a high level, are these linked, are the risks linked with the key risks identified in the report? So there's a whole list of risks noted as key risks in the pension fund report. Are these risks linked with them?
Yes.
Because the wording is not the same. It doesn't actually group. There's no grouping or subgrouping with what's written in the identified as the key risks.
Sorry, in terms of the annual report?
Yes.
So
the wording
are,
of the key risks there are different to the wording of the risks here.
okay, we'll note that.
Okay, and specifically, I have a few comments on them. So I think the IAC has got renamed to PC, so that needs to be updated. And when you talk about knowledge and skills training for members of the IAC, you should also include the board. So should be the pensions board as well as just the pensions committee.
Yeah, I think this may be an early version because there is a revised version that should have been, that has all the amendments in there. Apologies if that's incorrect.
That's fine. And the point I was trying to make earlier about the, the scrutiny and support from the local pensions board, that will only be stronger if we quickly are able to get to the point where we can do that more effectively. I'm not saying we don't do it, but I think we still have some gaps we need to fill fast if this scrutiny is really going to be any good in terms of the assessment what we've said. So we've said that it's a low risk, but I think yeah, we need to review that. Speaking about the performance of the fund since COVID, has there been, so if we're talking about risk number 3, the strategic asset allocation realigned towards higher yielding assets, is that still correct to state? Have we done anything different since the equity sell-off since March?
Yes, so this is obviously for the previous financial year. We're now in the process of revising that strategic asset allocation, which will be covered in the investment strategy update I'll give you.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And there's a specific risk around assets and liabilities impacted by investment performance in light of COVID-19. So has the asset allocation actually changed? Has the portfolio been assessed to review correlation between assets to see what assets are correlated to equities and commodities? If there's a sell-off, how will that hit performance?
Yes,
has that been done?
Yes, so in terms of the, we had a seminar with members during COVID in terms of and we obviously had a discussion with our investment advisor to see how the assets had performed post-COVID. Fortunately, the investments that we've had, a lot of diversification has meant that we're back to normal levels of pre-COVID times in terms of the value of the fund. Also, in terms of our strategic asset allocation, we're actually now revising that. We're in the process of changing the asset allocation. We'll be looking to go more towards a index tracked area, possibly more, and maybe move away more from the passive. So we will be looking to reduce our active equities over the longer term.
Okay, thank you. Risk 8, will we modify the life certificate check given what we've heard in the address tracing mortality screening update we heard that we're using other services? It won't just be a life certificate check, but we'll do other controls as well.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, and I'd also recommend that the risks related to cybercrime and data fraud be called out. I don't see that here unless I missed it. So I'd recommend that be included. I don't know where, but I think maybe in the part of the same risk around pension overpayment, because that's the biggest risk, as Ian pointed out earlier.
I presume we can include that, Rakesh?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
And Rakesh, depending on what your investment managers are saying about the risks related with LIBOR cessation, I don't know whether the hedging book has a lot of interest rate swaps.
We don't.
Total return swaps.
We don't actually have that much in our assets at all, which are related to LIBOR. But we have had conversations. Yeah, we've had a conversation.
The investment managers may be hedging their books, so there's still an indirect risk. So if the committee feels it's a material risk, then that should be flagged as part of new legislation or somewhere there, something around regulatory or because both the Bank of England and the FCA are pushing for moving away from LIBOR.
Yeah.
So we could consider that as a reg risk, though it's not a direct LGPS related issue, but it's an overarching issue. I didn't have any further questions on that. I'd invite anyone else to raise their hands if they have any questions, please. No? Okay, thank you. So can I request the risk register be noted? Please raise your hands. Have I missed anyone? No, okay, thank you. Moving on, investment strategy update. Rakesh, that's you again. Rakesh, you're on mute.
Apologies, I was just flipping the screen across. Yeah, so the committee met on the 29th of July. As part of our investment strategy update, key areas that we're looking at is obviously reported on the fund's performance. This was, and obviously the committee meeting that was supposed to take place in April was cancelled due to COVID. So the update was given as of the 31st of March. So that obviously showed where the fund had been at the point of the pandemic. There was the fund had declined in terms of fund value had gone down from 97% value to about 94%. However, in terms of there's a PERC universe performance and Newham's overall performance, which is taken over, I think, over 20 or 30 years. It gives a data, shows that generically the fund's performance has been pretty solid, although it's obviously contracted in terms of the average contraction within the LGPS was minus 4.6, whereas Newham's fund had contracted by minus 3.6, just to give you an idea of where we stood there. There was the chair of the pensions board has been nominated, shortlisted for as a finalist for the Women in Pensions Awards award, which takes place, I believe, in November. Is really there to representation is given for women within the pension and trustees, and in terms of the roles that they played within their current funds, and in terms of what they've been able to contribute to that. Another key aspect was the pensions committee was very keen and has historically excluded a lot of tobacco from its stocks purely on a financial risk basis, because historically it was seen that tobacco companies face large liabilities from outstanding court actions. Although the fund does have a small exposure through its stocks in its passive markets, generally speaking, the fund has been very keen not to include that. So as part of that, there was a discussion at the previous quarterly strategy meeting in relation to signing a tobacco-free finance pledge. This is something that's been done in collaboration with a company, an organization that's working with the United Nations Environment Programme. It's also supported by principles of responsible investment by the United Nations. This pledge is currently has 180 signatories worldwide, and people from a lot of organizations within financial institutions. A recent signatory is the Nest Pensions, have recently signed to that. So Newham took this, we presented that committee, and committee were agreed to sign this pledge, and this means that Newham becomes the first LGPS signatory of this pledge in the UK, which is quite an important feat, an important area that Newham wants to be recognised for. Also, we had a discussion regarding the strategic asset allocation, which has been revised. And what normally happens when you've had a triennial valuation, we have a new investment strategy statement that has been published. The new strategy statement was discussed at QSR and at the committee, highlighting the direction that the committee wishes the fund to move in terms of its stocks and its allocations, looking more to go towards a more diversified portfolio, moving away from the equities and to more real assets, and also there's a new social housing fund and numerous other new products that the fund has invested on, having gone through those processes. And that is something that the fund agreed on in terms of the new investment strategy statement, which was then circulated to, normally what happens, you have a consultation period where it's distributed to stakeholders for them to review, and then if there are any comments are taken on board, and then that then becomes enshrined as part of the annual report as the new policy for investment strategy statement. And those were the main topics that we covered that day.
Thanks, Rakesh.
Yeah. Any questions?
I have a couple before them. I'd like to congratulate the chair of the Pensions Committee for her award, or I think for the nomination of our award.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great achievement. I think also the tobacco pledge, I think it's in line with the ESG focus of the fund. So I think it's a good step.
Yeah.
And I think it's did you say that we are the first pension fund, or at least a local government pension fund to do that? So I think that's a really good marketing point, and I think that should be included in the membership communication, because if you're targeting youngsters, in the people in the demographic 25 to 40, I think that'll be certainly a key point to bring about. And I think so also is the nomination for the chair of the committee. I think that's a good point. So I had a couple of questions specifically with the report I think you presented in the last committee. I think I saw that as a material included. So I see the specific line item called real assets. It's a small part of the income generating assets, but do you know what that is? I couldn't quite get what that means. Is that real assets? What are real assets? Are they positions in funds, in alternate funds, or hedge funds?
They're alternate funds. So probably about 2.5 years ago, the committee was interested in diversifying. So we went through a procurement process. We've invested into a fund which is more renewable infrastructure. There's a particular fund that we've invested into. Another area that was quite key was an agriculture fund, but had a tilt again towards renewables within that as well. So those are the real assets. So the two funds that we specifically have invested into.
So that's a investment in the fund, which invests in renewable companies, not actually a position in the companies themselves, not a private transaction. Okay. Okay. So given that, there's a section on sensitivity of assets. So I was wondering why the valuation method for these assets are different. Why is the sensitivity limited to just I think it's 20%? Okay. And some of the other mark-to-market observable market data-based assets is 10%. So if this is a fund, and I think it should be more easier to not just depend on similar transactions, but to actually get closer to the valuation. Why can't the fund be more confident, or why can't the investment manager be more confident about the valuation?
Well, so the information that we gather for the sensitivity analysis is actually taken from the fund manager themselves. So they give us the breakdown in terms of the sensitivity that they feel their valuation will have during the market. And that's the information that then we collate and we put into our accounts. So it's not something that we take, it's something that we would take from the actual. So for example, if it's in property or any kind of level 3 investment, depending on the investment and depending on the investment manager, they will give us the market or where they feel the sensitivity or how much that is going to be volatile.
Yeah, I think in that case you should definitely ask the question: why is it more difficult to value. Why is the range so wide? It should ideally be, as if it's a fund.
I think the reason that is because of valuations of level 3 assets. Then they're done on a cycle which may, it may be a 6 monthly cycle. It could be an annual cycle. So that can have an impact in terms of the volatility of that. So, for example, when you've got an event like COVID, for example, the valuation may have been done previously in December. You may not get the next valuation through till June or July. So there'll be a disparity in terms of valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think that actually makes sense then to keep the range higher than lower.
No.
Any questions for Rakesh? No. Okay. Thank you, Rakesh.
You're welcome.
I think that's probably finishing early today. Okay, so the next item is the date of the next meeting. I think it's currently scheduled for 1:30 p.m. on 10th November. So I think that meeting will be held similar to this one, remotely on Zoom and live telecast on, I think, YouTube. So well, we'll get that confirmed as we go closer to the date. So is there anything anyone wants to talk about? If not, then I will declare the meeting closed, and I'll ask everyone to just wait till it's announced that the live streaming has ended and the Zoom is ended. Thank you.